Hi, I'm Lindsey Stephens with the Crochet Guild of America, the only nonprofit dedicated to crochet in the United States. I'm here today with Dan Lawson. He's the Emmy-nominated costume designer who's worked on shows like The Good Wife, The Good Fight, Instinct, and Brain Dead. And now he's working on the new hit CBS TV show, Elsbeth. Thanks, Dan, so much for joining us today. We really appreciate this.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited that you found me.
Oh, we are too. Now, can you explain to some of our viewers who may not know what your role is as a costume designer?
Well, I serve a costume designer serves a lot of different purposes on a show, but basically we do the clothing for a show. And we also, you can hear I'm in New York, right?
Yeah.
um, we we're storytellers. We move the story along. We support the actors and their choices. We interpret the script. We help the director get what he or she is looking for in the story. We really are supporters of the storytelling. So
That's really such an important role that I think maybe a lot of people who just sit and watch TV aren't aware of all that goes on behind the scenes to make that happen.
right. I think a lot of times, if you notice the costumes, you might not have done the job right. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it should be part and parcel of sort of the picture you're seeing. Like I always think about a show like, let's say, Sex and the City, where you did notice the costumes, but you were supposed to, and it really advanced the story. And Pat Fields did such a beautiful job on that, and just, you know what I mean? In that sense, you were supposed to see them, and it was 100% part of the story. And I think in Elsbeth, clearly Elsbeth's wardrobe is something that stands out. We want her to pop in every scene that she's in. She lives now, she's transplanted to New York City, and we're trying to make a beautiful, chic, elegant, sort of cool toned New York. And we want Elsbeth to be bright and colorful and perhaps sparkly even at times. And so in that case, we do want her wardrobe to stand out. We do want our audience to see her. You know, when we started the story, we way back almost a year ago now, when we did the pilot, and Robert and Michelle King, who created the series, and they talked about how they wanted Elsbeth to sort of be a modern day Columbo. And, you know, Columbo always showed up in that khaki raincoat, that trench coat, and
A distinctive look.
very distinctive. And so we wanted to use that idea on Elsbeth. And for us, her trench coat are the sort of the wacky combinations of clothes she puts together, the different elements. I mean, we still want her to be believable and yet heightened. But we always went, like, when she comes in the door, you know, you want the captain to kind of, oh, gosh, here she is again. And, you know, we're putting an exclamation mark under that with the colors and the silhouettes and that sort of thing.
Well, I know as a crocheter, whenever I'm watching TV,
Yeah.
if something like crocheted comes across the screen, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's something crocheted. And so when the promos for Elsbeth came out, and the main photo is Carrie Preston with this giant granny square scarf, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a crochet scarf. Like, what is the story behind that scarf? Where did you get it? How did it become the piece for the promos?
Well, that was actually one of the very first pieces I bought for the pilot. And it's fascinating. Like, I think I should get an extra bump in my paycheck, because I didn't know that look was going to become the cornerstone of the publicity for the show. And they even, like, they used the pink coat that we had, and it kind of became the color of the show as well. So when we first started, obviously, I'd worked with Carrie Preston, who plays Elsbeth, for many years. And we had, when we were first starting the pilot, I would go out and do reconnaissance shopping, and I actually saw that scarf at Bloomingdale's.
Wow.
I know, at Bloomingdale's. And I was like, I mean, I knew like the second I saw it, I mean, I don't always know that's the piece. That piece is going to be in a particular episode or in the show, but I saw that and I knew it was going to be in the show because it just I looked at it and I said, Elsbeth, the colors were interesting. And there were a lot of elements that came into play with it. Like I needed many of them. We needed multiples. So it was great. It was being sold at Bloomingdale's. It was a scarf that's by a brand called Aqua. I don't know if you know that brand, Aqua. And we knew that we could get our hands on several of them. And, she's wearing it when the bus goes by or the taxi goes by and she gets splashed with the water. So we needed multiples. And then they decided they were going to do the splash both ways. So we needed even more multiples because what happens if she gets splashed one way and it doesn't work, or it works, but then the second one doesn't? We just had to have so many
backups.
Yeah, exactly. And when I was putting Carrie's look together for Elsbeth for the pilot, it was the first piece I gravitated to, as I said, and then in the fitting room, it was a piece that she gravitated to as well. And you know what I like about it is that it looks like, besides the color and it's fanciful and all that, it looks like she made it.
Do you think Elsbeth crochets?
I do.
In the Elsbeth universe?
I think that yes, I think Elsbeth crochets or tries to. I think we have an episode coming up where she's taking decoupage courses. I mean, I think that she's tactile. I don't know that she's necessarily very good. We actually had an episode on The Good Fight where she had been taking glass blowing classes, and I
remember that.
Yes, these awful weirdo paperweight. And she gave them out to people as gifts throughout the episode. So that was very funny. So I think that she's a hands-on type of person. And of course, with all the different yarns and the textures and things out there, I think it's a bonus when it looks like that she's made the piece, or she's like if she's in a suit jacket and I change out the buttons to something that like she could have done, like she saw a button and bought it and added it to her jacket, like that sort of thing.
It adds a backstory to the character.
Oh, I agree.
Very subtle way.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I have to ask, because you said you bought it at Bloomingdale's. Mm-hmm. Do you remember how much it cost? Because every crocheter who is debating how much to charge for that scarf they made right now is waiting with bated breath.
Yes, I'm happy to tell you. It was, if I remember correctly, I think it was $125.
Okay, so we're never going to undervalue our craft again.
Don't undervalue your craft. No, really don't. I mean, really not. Look, I found a granny square bucket hat.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Right? How cute. It's not so cute. Well, when I do it off to the side, it's very cute. But look how cute that is.
Oh, that is awesome.
It's adorable. And we found this, and I have a whole series of these. Some of them have little cherries attached to them. But they, on Amazon, it was a seller on Amazon. It wasn't even Etsy.
Well, CGOA, the Crochet Guild of America, is going to have to be your new source for crochet projects.
Absolutely. And don't think I'm not already thinking when I have to have some custom things done, you're going to be getting a...
Yeah, there were a couple members I told about this in advance, and they were like, what can we send him? Now, in the first episode, the pilot episode also, in addition to that granny square scarf that just kind of pulls everything together, she's got all her tote bags, and at least two of them I spotted were crocheted. There's a teal one with ruffles. There's a multi-striped ones. Like, were those also Bloomingdale's?
Some of them were Bloomingdale's, and some of them, I think I picked up one or two at Saks as well. And of course, wherever we are, we always pick things up. I mean, if I'm at like like a discounted store as well, shopping, because I don't know if you've seen any of my like interviews or anything, when I always talk about we shop high, we shop low. It's like
Yeah.
whatever's right for the character, whatever's going to help me tell my story. Those both of those bags that you referenced, the teal ruffled bag as well as the bold stripe, those were both expensive bags. And I think the teal ruffle was by a company called Ghani.
Okay.
And yeah, it was about $350 for the bag.
So I think the lesson for our members here is charge what you're worth with your crochet.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you should definitely charge what the piece is worth. I think that people always undervalue their worth. It's like they almost feel embarrassed to ask for the price for the amount of time that they put into the project. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To creating it. And then you also have the yarn and the materials needed and all that. And that's where you have to start.
Yeah. You can't lose money.
That's right.
Although we do have a concept, I don't know if you know about in the crochet and hand knit industry, about whether someone is crochet worthy. Are they like worthy of getting a gift of something that I have made by hand? Like,
that's fascinating. Oh God, I never even thought of something like that. That is so clever. I think that's really smart because you've put some of yourself into it. I mean, you really have, right?
Now, yeah, totally. Now, do you knit or crochet or sew? What's your background?
Well, I grew up in Indiana. And when I was very crafty when I was younger, and I did actually do a lot of crocheting. And
awesome.
I did crocheting. And I'll tell you a story. When I was maybe 16, and my grandmother had a significant stroke, and she survived, but paralyzed and whatnot. But I crocheted her the most gigantic blanket so that she could have. And it was, and I remember I was like, when I started doing it, I started with a small hook, and I was like, oh my God, I'm never. So I got a hook that was like the size of a Buick, like I was holding the hook like this, and like, but I made her this blanket, and she had it at the nursing home, and then she got to come home and she had it, and when she passed away, the family members gave the blanket back to me, and I have it.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that's something about like hand knit and hand crocheted items is they really, the family history, the connections, the stories that come with them is so special.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it meant the world to her that like some stupid teenager created this blanket and gave it to her, and it meant a lot to her. I know it did.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you were 16 when you did that.
I might have even been like 14. I was young. I was teens.
So one of the things we recently did is we've recently at the Crochet Guild of America opened up free teen memberships for 16 to 18-year-olds.
That's so smart. That is so smart.
I love to think that like if it had happened then, maybe the young Daniel Lawson would have, joined while he was making his grandmother his
Oh, I like that. Thank you. I love that.
With Elsbeth, how did you choose the colors for her? I know there's some history from The Good Wife and The Good Fight, but like how does color play a part in costume design and in dressing the characters?
Well, color is everything, right? I mean, it's the, color, cut, silhouette, texture, all those things come into play. But color, I mean, that's like the first thing you see. It's what meets you at the door, if you will. And we knew that we wanted Elsbeth to stand out. We knew that we wanted her to pop. We knew we wanted her to be the fish out of water. So that was one element. Then another element was we wanted her to be like a kid in a candy store, a kid's sense of wonder. So I was thinking about what are childlike colors? What are those, so I started hitting on the pinks and the reds and the corals and brighter tones. And that's how we came into the colors that we use on her. And it was, and I will say that these are stronger colors than I used when we were doing The Good Wife, and then when I costumed her subsequently on The Good Fight. On that show, it didn't take much to have her stand out. And we also wanted her to come across as a very legitimate lawyer. We also wanted her to kind of be that crazy as a fox, that old quote. And so when we were going into this show, we wanted to ramp that up a little bit and put more behind it. New York, we knew this is something, I just realized this. We knew that we were going to be shooting on lots of locations.
Yeah.
And so many of those locations are uncontrollable. Like you can't control what a lot of times, like who's going to be passing on the sidewalk and that sort of thing. In the close shot you can, but often you won't own the whole street. That's what we call it, owning the street or owning the store or whatever, where we have complete control. So we also knew that those strong colors were really going to help us be able to follow her, through any particular shot or scene. Now, of course, we don't want to go too far. You have to walk the line. So far, I think we're walking the line okay. But anyway, the colors were important to us. And then we knew we wanted to go bold out of the gate.
Awesome. So a lot of times when crocheters are talking, we discuss how to combine different colors because we've got, one skein of yarn and one shade and what does it match with? What does it go with? What advice would you give crocheters, or if they're looking for kind of that quirky, cozy, fun look, or if they want to kind of their piece to come across as chic and sleek?
Yeah. Well, if I think, and this just goes back to, I could just speak from my viewpoint as, a costume designer and what I do and what catches my eye as far as what's chic and elegant and sleek, as you said. And for me, I'm all about tone on tone, very subtle, either all the same tone or very subtle variations within the piece. So that I think that automatically creates a sleek line to what you're doing. I also think if you're going for sleek, obviously don't, I know a lot of times with crocheting, things can get, you can embellish with the stitches and make them bigger and the textures. And I think if you smooth that out, and try to keep it, really think about smooth, and even the type of yarn that you're using. If that is a nice smooth, that's going to give you that more sleek, elegant look, which, I think sometimes people think of, when you think of crocheting, you often end up, it's big and very homemade looking, but crocheting does not have to be homemade looking at all. I think it can be quite elegant, and if you keep it sleek as you're making it. Now, obviously, if you want to do something that's more fun and more stand out or whatever, then start embellishing, put together colors that are very contrasting or even complementary colors together. And I mean complementary, like on the color wheel. If you've got purple on one side, hit that yellow on the other in the piece so that you've got a real play going on. But I think within a piece, I would look for something to make it, let's say New York City or elegant or a big city or whatever, sleek, tonal, almond color. Even when I dress people, I always talk about a column of color, and because it makes the person look taller, it makes them look more sleek. And so I would pull that type of thinking into creating a piece when you're crocheting.
That's really great advice because, thinking about those color choices for the tone, and also you're right, the texture, the texture for the stitches, the size of the stitches can really.
I think texture is really key. I really do. Obviously I keep holding up this hat, but with this, there's lots of open air, there's lots of, But for me, once you start getting down more like
The
this, where
single
there's,
crochet
that's
brim. Yeah.
right. And it's a tighter, more concise, like to me, that looks more elegant and more, well, as you said, more sleek.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as of today, 4 episodes of Elsbeth have aired.
Mm-hmm.
Can we look forward to more crochet?
There's
Like,
definitely some more pieces coming up, that's for sure.
okay.
And oh my gosh, your head would have exploded. We have the last episode, we have a fashion show coming up, and one of the initial pieces, we have actually 2 fashion shows coming up. We're shooting them right now. One of them, I was actually going to base the whole thing on crocheted pieces, and I ended up not. So don't be sad.
There will be a season 2.
There will be, hopefully there'll be a season 2. And I did hang on to the pieces because they're just so fun, and that we're hoping that be able to use them, down the line. You know what it was? One of the reasons that I ended up not going with the crochet is because I couldn't find enough pieces, large pieces that would, like jackets and that sort of thing. And that looked like they all came from the same designer.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because it had to look like a designer's line.
We can help you with that. We know people.
I like that. That's amazing.
I'm very much looking forward to what we could do together. And
you know what we need to do together. Seriously, if we get a second season, we haven't heard yet. I mean, the ratings have been great and the reviews were incredible. So fingers crossed, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But I really think that we need to create an Elsbeth line of scarves. I really do. And sell them. I just can't imagine that, because we could do everything from like sleek and chic to colorful to, they could have flowers on them. I mean, there's so many different routes to go with the Elsbeth line of scarves.
Totally. There's so much fun to be had with that.
Right.
Well, as a crocheter, I am so excited to have a show that's put crocheted pieces front and center and just made it, really promoted what the art can look like and how much fun you can have with it. So on behalf of all crocheters and the Guild, thank you so much, not only for this interview, but really for just, putting crochet out there.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you noticed. Oh, I did want to mention did you see the small bag that we used? I think we used it in the first episode too. It was a granny square bag, but it was so finely done and had the big 2 orange balls at the top. That was made by Max Mara.
Really?
I think that was like a $450 purse.
I'm going home and I'm upping all my prices on from now on, when I give Hanukkah presents, I'm going to be like, just so you know, this is what this would retail for.
Oh, I love that.
But yes, lovely. Thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to lots more crochet and lots more fun on the show, Elsbeth.
Perfect. Thank